Okay, this is Sidebar digital version. Thank you so much for joining us. There's something going on called the Elf Louise Telethon on WOAI's, but we are here because there's still stuff that we need to talk about. And of course, we're at the studios. Yeah, the R-rated studios with former Bexar County DA Nico Jorge, who is a lawyer, trial lawyer, managing partner of LaHood Norton Law Group, and of course, George Araujo, scholar, former chemist. See, I can't read and look at a camera at the same time. I've never done it before. Pharmaceutical researcher and director, and there's so many things that we need to talk about today. One thing that happened this week that made me, this is just one of the several topics we're going to discuss, but one of the things that happened today is Chris Cuomo came out saying that he would be open to backing Trump. And I was like, wait a second, is this the parallel world?
Are you talking about his interview on, I think it's Patrick Bet-David?
Yes. And I was very confused.
I saw a clip of that. Well, he didn't, I mean, I just think he was being honest. I saw a portion of that.
Yeah, but being honest, that's the first red flag.
Well, he's claiming that he's always been honest. I mean, now he's, you know, I like this Chris Cuomo more than I like the one that was on CNN. And now, and he's in this weird space because he was doing what his bosses told him to do. Then his bosses turned on his ass, and now he says screw his bosses, and so now he's more himself, and he's on a network where he has his own creative control. And so, look, he can't ignore the facts. He said what it was. What I gleaned from it. Did you watch it, George? Mm-hmm. So what I gleaned from it was, look, this son of a bitch. We're not on the radio, so we can go like
I know we can say anything.
Before show and the after show. This son of a bitch went after my family, went after my brother. So there's a personal reason why I just can't support him, but objectively, I need to support him. So he's going to. I took it away that he was open-minded and that he was leaning towards, but he doesn't want to endorse. It's kind of like that Michael Rappaport dude.
No, I know, and I get that.
I mean,
and
everything's going to hell in a handbasket. Yeah. What do you do? It's like the alligators at your front porch now. It's all theory. It's all fun and games until someone gets hurt.
But don't you feel like, I don't know, I'm in a position right now where I always think everybody laughs at the conspiracy theorists. And then when things come true, everybody just sweeps it under the carpet.
Yes.
And when it comes to a liar, which there are a lot of them these days.
Gavin Newsom is one of them.
A big liar, Biden administration, Kamala Harris. I mean, the list goes on and on. Let's just say in a dating situation, if I'm dating a guy and I find out that he lies to me, I'm like, okay, it was one lie. He explains why it was a lie, but I never feel the same.
But what if he's lying about that he's really a girl? That's a big lie.
Well,
that's a different lie.
We'll find out the wedding night.
Yeah. So Cuomo said this. He says, we survived the Trump administration. Would we survive another? Yes. And for people who are now going to attack me and say, what are you talking about? Trump is like the crazy man. Well, look, you know, as Patrick says, because it's Patrick David, the data is the data. Nobody was trying to kill us when Trump was president in a way that they are now.
True statement. Mm-hmm. True.
Okay. So we've always said that, you know, when you're a white, wealthy, isolated liberal in a silo in an ivory tower in New York and other well-populated centers like LA, you could sit back and sort of pronounce your virtues, your liberal virtues. But then when the issues that are affecting everybody else are on your front porch, you decidedly take a different tone. And this is Cuomo taking a different tone.
But not too many people have done what he did.
Well, people think, did hell freeze over? I mean, this is Cuomo.
That's what I thought.
This guy is the bastion of liberalism.
I don't know if he's the bastion of liberalism. I think that's...
Well, I mean, he's CNN. He was a CNN anchor, and he parrored liberal talking points.
He did. Well, he wasn't...
Pretty devotedly.
I haven't followed this dude. I mean, you know, but he changed... I mean, when CNN wasn't as loony as it turned into, you see this evolution of Cuomo, and then now he's back to his old ways or whatever, because even his brother, he wasn't a progressive... left-wing.
Look, let's go to the heart of the matter. During the COVID era, when America went insane, this guy was all in.
I agree.
And when you look at lockdown measures, he's out there cutting. He's posting stuff on video of how he's almost boasting about it, and he's isolated in his apartment, but he's not. And then there were conflicting videos of him being hypocritical,
or not even having COVID.
Correct. So, but this guy was all in terms of a public posture and the statements that he stated or made, he was all in. This would have been a really great time for him to say, you know what, I don't know, this seems to be going against our constitutional freedoms.
Yeah, I'm not an apologist for Cuomo because he irritated the shit out of me, and and I thought he was fake as hell during that process. But I kind of isolate the COVID because there's a lot of conservatives that fell for that shit too. The COVID and the vaccine kind of craze versus transgender, open borders, all that. It's not just like a one size fits all. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I just don't think he was. I mean, he wasn't a Michael Rappaport to me.
So you're basically saying you wouldn't have expected that from him at that time anyway, because everybody was nuts.
Everybody was nuts.
Everybody was nuts.
Yeah.
Except for us, we weren't nuts.
No. Well, we were different nuts.
Well, we were nuts.
We were
because
accused
you were
of being
telling the
nuts
truth.
because we weren't nuts.
Right.
So we were a different kind of nut, I guess. But yeah, I think that's valid.
That's all I'm saying, Daddy.
I think that's valid. But
do you think that this is the beginning of many more Chris Cuomo types and Michael Rappaport types?
I think it's already happening. I think it's happening. I think if you look at Trump's numbers, national numbers.
But let's just say this. I want to say something. I'm sorry, George. I'm going to go.
If you look at Trump's numbers nationally, and if you look at Trump's numbers state by state, you can see that he's expanding his base. Yeah. He was kind of floundering around the low to mid 30s, and that's gone over 40% right now. He's 42%. He really should be around 50% to be quote unquote safe at least, but he's not. Trump's not there yet, but he's definitely growing his base, and he's certainly beating Biden in most polls. And I think that's indicative that Trump is appealing to people that he wasn't appealing to a few years ago.
But I wanted to say earlier when we were talking about people that are liars and all this other stuff. Look, I mean, Trump is no standard of truth telling. I mean, the guy's an exaggerator too. So all the politicians, quote unquote, stretch the truth at the very least. I was talking about the Newsom DeSantis debate, where he
my God, I know.
Maybe we'll talk about that in a second. I didn't watch it. I just saw the after show stuff, and I'm watching the clips and all that other stuff. To your point earlier, Karen, I mean, so you have a Michael Rappaport. First of all, I've been noticing this for a while. You have a Joe Rogan. That was a big deal. Joe Rogan was a Bernie Sanders supporter. And I'm not some apologist for Trump. I just want this country to get back on track. But I've supported the fact that even though Trump irritates the shit out of me a lot of times, I think he's our best bet for now, in this season. At this point of the game, we're behind. We need someone to go in there and hit the home run or the knockout punch or whatever. I think we need 4 more years of Trump, not because because I saw what he did when he was in office, and you have to distinguish certain things. We look at policy versus personality. Even though his personality doesn't irritate me as much as other people, even though he irritates me a lot, and when he does, he really irritates me. But his policies, I don't know how you objectively can say that his policies were bad. I mean, when Chris Cuomo says we survived Trump, I would have said, what do you mean by that? What did we have to survive? His tweets? I mean, did we survive his economy? Ooh. Did we survive the fact that he didn't get us in any wars? Did we survive the fact that Russia wasn't running around acting like an idiot, or that North Korea?
That's the way I took it.
I mean, no. What I'm saying is he's acting like we tolerated Trump. That we survived him. Like he sucked also, but he sucked in a different way.
I think he's speaking rhetorically from his perspective. I think he was sitting and saying, people are looking at me and saying, hey, we survived the Trump administration. I think it's a rhetorical device. I don't think he's saying we survived it literally. I think he's saying.
But I would have asked him, right?
Yeah, I would have. Yeah, I would have probed on that and asked him to expand on that. But I think it's telling. I think we're bringing this up because it's telling of a shift that we're seeing electorally, and I think it's a good shift where people who are at least slightly reasonable, they're going to sit back and say, holy crap, this is a policy issue ultimately.
Yes,
it's a policy
George,
issue.
Yes, 100%.
And ultimately, and that's the position that I take. I'm not a Trump apologist, but I am apologist all day long for his policies.
Yes.
I will defend Trump's policies all day long.
I guess go ahead.
And I think Cuomo is making that same claim. Look, I look at the impact that Trump's policies had on basic things like my safety, my stability as an American citizen.
Food.
Right, which I have a constitutional right to, and our federal government needs to ensure it. That's the role of the federal government, to ensure the protection and preservation of our rights. That's why the government exists.
Yeah.
And they do that under the consent of the governed, by the consent of the governed. And I think this is an implicit statement that under Trump, those constitutional protections were much more in place than they are with Biden. I don't think there's anybody who's sane or reasonable who would agree with that, who would disagree with that.
I guess, though, when I say, do you see more of this happening, I'm not talking about the stars like Cuomo or Joe Rogan or who else has come forward? Bill Maher. No, Bill Maher hasn't.
Bill Maher has not, but Bill Maher advocates basically against his own side, but won't make the leap and say that he'll vote differently, which is interesting.
But do you think this is actually going to trickle down to the average white BLM supporter or the crazy cat lady that's gluing her hands to the street?
We don't know. I mean, because there's a BLM supporter that said he's endorsing Trump. What was his name? Did you see that, Saulo?
Which one?
It's some dude.
Oh, yeah.
Some BLM supporter said that he's one of the leaders, whatever the hell that means in that organization. But he says, look, they're not doing. Biden hasn't done anything for the black community. You know, I'm not going to put up with this crap anymore. I'm endorsing Trump. Did you get his name? Can you look it up? Go ahead.
Yeah, is it Fisher?
It might have been Fisher.
Yeah. So I don't think he's depictive of the average BLM person. I think the average BLM person is what we imagine the average BLM person, the person who's out on the streets and who is doing a great deal of public damage. It's sort of the BLM Antifa. I don't think that those are 10% of the BLM. I think they are the heart of the BLM movement. I think this guy's an exception. He's not the norm. But I'm pleased about it. I'm happy about it.
Take it.
I am. I mean, we'll take anyone. I mean, we'll take anyone who has an open mind and who's able to engage on the facts. And I think, again, this guy's sitting back and saying it's true. What exactly has been done for the black community in the aftermath of Trump? What has been done for any minority? What's been done for anybody?
Well,
How has anybody?
There has been one group of minorities that he's helped, the illegals.
That's true.
Yeah, and if we keep this up, they won't be minorities very long.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This is the point. I made this statement about a month ago, and I really believe this, Nico. I think that the numbers aren't. You can dismiss the 11 million number. That's a joke. There's 11 million illegals. I mean, there's at least 2 times that. I would argue there's 3 times that many. And once you start getting into the $40-50 million range, or 50 million person range, you're going to have a political party. You are. You're going to see a political party coalesce around this, and they're going to have political power. That's where this is going, without question. And if you don't think that party will ultimately find its way to the United States Congress, you're crazy. That's how it works. It's happened in nations across.
When you plant your flag in a neighborhood that just got created outside of Houston, we
talked about that.
That's the mini version of America, don't you think?
But people need to wake the hell up, man. That's how Rome fell. I mean, you have to have people that assimilate into this country. I mean, there's
no push toward it.
I love the diversity of ethnicities. I mean, my grandfather came over from Lebanon. He got stuck here during the war. He was like in 3rd grade. Him and his mom and his siblings were back home with his pop. And so he spoke 3 languages. He learned how to speak 7 because he started selling fruit. And there was no HEBs back then.
It was the same with my dad's
so
grandparents.
He's hustling and he's communicating, but they assimilated. You guys are, Portuguese, but came from Angola, Africa. I mean, everyone has that story. This is the great melting pot. But it's a melting pot that says we're going to buy into an experiment to do things different than what we came. We are Americans. Now, we're Americans. I always say it. I'm not a Lebanese American. I'm not a Mexican American. I'm an American of Lebanese Mexican descent. And I put it in that. I'm an American first.
Yes, that's right.
And so if we get away from that, that's why when people say African American or Mexican American, I don't buy into that ideology. I am an American of Lebanese Mexican descent. So all that to say is when that doesn't happen, to George's point, I mean, we're in trouble because they're going to have influence. They're not assimilating. You're seeing that in different. When I was DA here, I will tell you, there are certain groups of ethnicities that kind of run their culture, their village, so to speak, the way they want to. And they settle their own matters, and I don't want to get us down a bunny trail. I'm just saying there's not an assimilation process.
They don't want to.
And no.
They're living their own life.
No.
But even if you ask the question, I mean, you look at Bill Maher, for instance, and while we would say Bill Maher will never vote for Trump, but you do see some slippage in that direction. I'm not saying he's going to vote for Trump, but I mean, in the aftermath of the Xi Jinping visit to San Francisco, where all of a sudden the Democrats showed a real concern for filth on their streets, right? And for hypodermic needles and for homelessness and homeless encampments.
crap on
And
the
all of a
floor.
sudden, miraculously, I mean, it really truly is a force of nature that all of a sudden it was cleaned up. Did you notice that? Now, this issue has been around forever, and constantly and what they've responded was lots of excuse making. But all of a sudden, it was amazing how quickly and thoroughly they cleaned that up. And Bill Maher was in an interview, and he was remarking, and he was saying, look, I understand why Trump's winning. It makes sense why he's winning to me. Now, that's a step in that direction because he's thinking rationally. He's saying, okay, obviously Trump is doing something materially and substantially different than Biden.
Right.
What's he doing? Well, first of all, Trump gives a shit, and he gives a shit about blighted communities. And Trump keeps talking about that. He keeps saying this nation is going to hell in a handbasket. And when you ask him for that, he doesn't just talk economics. He talks about just the general state of communities. They're falling apart under Biden. I mean, they really are. These used to be legendary cities. San Francisco, LA. You go to Europe, you ask people who've never been to America and who dream of coming to America, and you ask them why. I've done that to my own relatives overseas. And they'll tell you, man, I have a dream of going to LA. In the back of my mind, I'm like, are you serious?
No, you don't. Not today.
Yeah.
Anybody who lives here will have a different opinion, but they'll say, oh, I really can't wait to go to New York. I mean, and they talk about it in legendary terms. Those cities are shitholes today because of the thinking that permeates this administration. And Trump just barrels in on that. And Maher's saying he thinks that Trump is going to win. He goes, and polls are showing that. I'm convinced he's going to win because Trump speaks to those issues that are hurting Americans every day. And if you're a Democrat,
I'm fascinated by
you're not preserved from that. At some point, it's coming here. And so I think both Cuomo and Maher are speaking to the same issue. And I think there's a lot of truth to it. Go ahead.
But
Sorry,
don't you think that it... Okay, so everybody that we're talking about is really the podcast group, whether it's Joe Rogan or Bill Maher. To me, or even like Elon Musk.
Oh, we got to talk about
But
that.
when you look, I know, but when you look at mainstream media, even conservative talk, just this past week, I was listening to Clay and Buck on WOAI, and I don't know
Was
who...
that a cheap plug?
No, this is not a plug. And if I got heard saying this, I would not be in favor anymore. But I feel like every time I hear them, I want to scream, because even if they have somebody like Vivek Ramaswamy on, they ask him, okay, if Trump wasn't running, which candidate would you back? And I'm like, why do you have to ask that question? Why is it always, if he's out of the picture, if he was dead, if we got rid of him, who would you back next? It's like, why are you asking that question?
Well, I think we actually have an answer to that question, but go ahead.
Well, I mean, I don't know why he's asking that question. I guess it's, I mean, maybe it's for...
But it's not just these guys, it's
in
it's
some
anybody.
sense, the question is implicit when you look at polls and we look at performance of each candidate and you say, I wonder how Ron DeSantis would be doing if Trump wasn't in the game, which is a foolish question considering Trump is 50 points ahead. Now, if Trump was 3 points ahead, I think that's a legitimate question. I think if we wean down the number of candidates, what impact is going to have on Trump? That's a legitimate question to ask electorally. I mean, you've run for office.
Yes.
That makes sense. It seems to me. It's a pipe dream at this point because Trump is literally
But
50
to me, that question is like,
ahead.
what would you do if you won the lotto? Who gives a shit? I didn't win the lotto.
I know,
That's an
I know.
because Trump is 50 points ahead. That's a lotto question.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's why when you asked me that, I started thinking, I was like, why the hell are they asking this question? Who cares? I mean, that's
Right.
a la-la dream. Just
Right.
get over it. Do what you need to do. Let's fix this country. I'm fascinated by Bill Maher. I didn't see that.
Well, I was going to quote what he said because...
Say what he did. Let me
he
see.
said
I
this
wish
to me
somebody
is-
would... Well, because I know Patrick is friends with him, and I think they had an interview or something. I would like to push back on him and say, what's your holdup? I mean, really, because for one time I heard him talk, his holdup was the whole January 6th thing. That was his deal. Well, then, are you gonna make that? First of all, listen to what Trump said. I mean, maybe I'm too much of a defense lawyer, and I want to due process matters and truth matters and whatever evidence matters. But then, what do you hold that same standard to what they did to the White House when they're spray painting the White House?
But nobody heard about that.
Well, nobody cares about it. It seems
Right,
like it's
right.
it's because it was pro-Palestine, you know, terrorists or whatever, not terrorists, but rioters or whatever they are. I mean, this dichotomy of standards was what I call bullshit on. And so I would love to press back on Bill and say, I really want to make sure I understand that everything you're saying, you're advocating, you're drawing people to Trump almost, but you're not willing to say, but I'm going to vote for him. Yeah. And I'm just curious why that's like a Robert De Niro thing to me. De Niro can't stand Trump.
Right.
But it's weird. I mean, it's really weird because I've heard him talk. And I was like, Bobby, did Trump like bang one of your girlfriends? I mean, I don't get it. It's something's very personal.
It is.
It doesn't make any sense. I'll kick his ass. Yeah, whatever, Bobby. You're not Goodfellas. Come on. But it's very weird. It's a very, you right?
Okay, this is the part you never hear.
Okay.
And it's almost this part of, well, did they follow up and ask him, dude, what's your problem? What's preventing
I'm
you
just
from
curious.
making...
It's almost the
Philippe,
same
it's almost
with
like an Alan
DeSantis.
Dershowitz. What, I mean, especially what exactly
Alan's
is
funny to me.
preventing you? I mean, this is almost
They have
like
pictures.
It's this sort of perpetual state of foreplay,
Yeah.
and you never get to the main event. And it's like, come on, brother, really? I mean, you just made the argument for Trump.
Yes.
I mean, in fact, you should be
100%.
on his campaign staff because
Yeah.
you're doing so well. And so if you read how he talks about
This
it,
is Bill?
yeah, this quote, this to me is why Trump is winning. Because he talks about, quote, I'm going to clean up the mental hospitals. He goes, and then he says, again, I'm not saying this is a good solution to he's saying, I'm not defending Trump. I'm just saying this is what Trump is saying, and what he's saying is resonating with people. He says, when he talks, I'm going to put people in camps, the immigrants, all this kind of stuff. He's talking about the massive deportation policy and at least keeping immigrants in camps where they're contained. And he said all this kind of stuff. And people just look around and they see a country, especially in the cities, that look out of control. And the fact that the Democrats could control it for 3 days, well, how about making it permanent? So he's talking to Democrats at this point.
You're talking about San Francisco now or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's continuing on this issue of the chaos in San Francisco that miraculously disappeared when the so-called Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Conference, which Xi Jinping, by the way, I always say the word cooperation to communists is code for please bow down and serve me.
Yeah.
Right.
Taking
and so
over.
he continues
Taking
because I
over.
know folks are saying, oh, they're just cleaning up this place because all those fancy leaders are coming to town. And he says, well, that's true because it's true. That's the point. And so then he goes on to argue, how about making this a permanent solution? Why don't you make this a permanent solution? What is that? And so what I don't understand is Mar's got a serious blind spot here.
Yeah, he does.
And he thinks these are just incompetent Democrats who are stepping on piles of shit because they're incompetent. And then his solution is, why don't we allow a more youthful Democrat to take the baton? You're missing the point, brother.
It's the idea, it's not the
can
person,
be,
yeah.
and Biden proves this every day. You can be 80 years old and be a dipshit, just like you can be a 17-year-old and be a dipshit. So dipshittery is non-age discriminatory, right?
I mean, look at
Let's-
Alan Dershowitz. He's in his 80s,
Yeah.
and he's still sharp as a tack.
He is an example of somebody who's not as much of a dipshit as Biden,
Yeah.
arguably. But so I don't know why he goes to the age thing.
Because
People
it's
don't
easy.
dislike Biden because he's old.
No.
They dislike Biden because he is a compromised, corrupt, desiccated piece of shit who doesn't care about Americans. In fact, I would argue he detests Americans by virtue of his policy. I don't know how he feels emotionally about
yeah.
Americans, but in terms of his policies, they're hateful of Americans because they constantly marginalize the average American. And we talk about this all the time, whether you look at the border, right? I mean, the border is, you said you're closest you've ever been to be a one issue voter because the border is erasing the very American identity.
Americanism, yeah,
Yeah.
of everything.
It's erasing America as we know it. And so when you look at Biden's policies, wherever you look at them, they're destructive of Americans. I would argue he's hateful of Americans. That's why people don't want Biden, not because he's old. Because Trump's not young either.
Yeah.
But his
wouldn't
poll
be able
numbers
to tell
continue
it.
to... Why did Trump's poll numbers then continue to improve? Why is that happening?
Because we know that he can do something about all of these problems.
Well,
he goes 'cause he did something.
But you have a scorecard. That's the deal. I'm actually
He did something,
interested in this,
yeah.
and I love the conversations. And I don't know how you do this. I'm curious. Once it becomes Trump and just Trump, you're going to have the scorecard. You're going to have 4 years of Biden and 4 years of Trump to go head to head. This is not a
Exactly.
tail of the tape. And what is his punch average? And what about this? And how many is that? No, this is cold facts, brother.
Yeah.
I mean, president, and you can go line by line,
Yeah.
and then we can get the pulse of Americans. And what's interesting to me, you hear when you see interviews of people like from New York, where are these immigrants coming here? What about us? We don't get it. We don't have our. People are starting to wake up. Wait a minute. Oh, so
Yep.
all these people are taken from us.
Yeah.
That's different now. But I'm still curious why it doesn't play out. And I don't know if we've had a recent election. Maybe we have to that. Newsom continues to say, and we've talked about this on the show, that abortion's on the ballot. I don't think that's inaccurate. But it's interesting to see. I'd like to see accurate dichotomy.
Abortion is still a topic because it works for them.
Well, but it's obviously, look, it's an issue in the Republican Party also.
It
is an issue, and we've got to conservatives,
versus
Republicans.
The border, I mean,
but all I can do is we can look at the last elections and see what the exit polls and what people are voting on and and how they're being couched and what's the PR behind it. You know, we were talking to a PR firm. What's the PR? How's the messaging? The messaging matters.
Well, I mean, there's two issues that you're bringing up. One is like the messaging. The messaging will make the abortion issue seem more important than the border issue, but it isn't more important.
No, the border is the more important. It really is.
And even to voters right now,
as a country,
even to voters right now, the number of people who say they're concerned about immigration are significantly larger than the number of people who say they're concerned about abortion. But to Nico's point, the messaging
makes a difference.
The messaging is trying to flip that to say, oh my gosh, abortion is actually much more existentially relevant to our elections than the border, which is nuts.
Well, look what they did in Virginia.
Messaging. We're not.
Virginia, the commercial campaign at the very last minute, and Youngkin tried to switch not change his style of what he was saying. And look, we just got to get comfortable talking about. I don't understand why it's such a simple topic for me. Look, I believe there's a child, not a clump of cells, in a woman. And a woman is beautifully and wonderfully made by God to bless our society. We cannot grow without a woman and her role in reproduction. And that is a child in there. That is not a lump of cells. That's not your fingernail. It's not a cuticle. I mean, we're treating it like that. It's a child. And not only do I say that, the penal code says that, because the penal codes in many states protects a child in a woman's womb, meaning that you can get the death penalty if you murder a pregnant woman because you murdered a child under 10. Okay, if I believe that science backs that up, my faith happens to, by the way. I don't even lead with my faith. That's kind of a back burner argument for me on this issue. If that's a child, what do I do now? I've challenged that with people. What do I do if I believe and science backs up that's a child in a woman's womb? What do I do?
Yeah, amen.
And since you are pro-choice all the way to birth, is that what you? Well, no, not that. Okay, well, let's talk about that. No part. But then are you advocating to change the murder statutes? I don't know any pro-choicers that are I want to change the murder statute. So when you murder my pregnant daughter, when you murder my pregnant sister or cousin, that it's not murder, capital murder, it's just aggravated assault, serious bodily injury. Yeah. No one's changing them. No one's petitioning the legislature.
It's just the topic,
I'm
not
looking
what it really
Karen,
means.
you know me. I look for consistency. Whatever your ideology is, it should be consistent. And I consistently take the position that is medically, scientifically, that's a child in there. Is it sustainable on its own? Of course not, but neither is a 2-day-old. I mean, are we really going to get into viability arguments, which they do, and we can do that we did on another show, viability. And we just need to be able to talk about that. But also, to Nikki Haley's point, I think, I haven't heard all of her arguments, we got to start somewhere. I mean, when you say no abortions, even though I'm pro-life. I mean, I'm a biblical pro-life person. I'm a practical pro-life. There's two different positions I take.
I think go ahead, say that. It's an important point you want to make.
Do you understand?
Please.
We got to start somewhere. I mean, remember back in the old days, what did Bill Clinton used to say? They need to be safe and rare. Biden said the same thing, and everybody thought within that first trimester, 4 months or whatever it was, that first trimester, nobody wanted to see abortions after that.
He wanted abortions to be safe, legal, and rare.
And rare, yes, safe, legal, and rare, safe and rare. And now it's up to due date, and then now even some people, not all.
I know.
I got into a discussion with a colleague of mine. No one's arguing for perinatal abortions. Yes,
really?
They are.
Yeah, they are.
Not all, not the majority. But so all I'm saying is we got to be shrewd as a snake, but innocent as a dove, right? Matthew 10:6. We've got to start somewhere. If the vast majority, if the pulse of America is, hey, we don't want to see abortions after this, can we start there? Let's just start there. That's what they did. Our founding fathers did with slavery.
And we're not having those discussions. We're not engaging people at this level. Nico talks about the basic biology, and then you talk about the emotional side of it, the social side of it, the spiritual side of it, and just from a policy perspective, we're not having these discussions. No. Ronna McDaniel dares have the balls to argue that Virginia screwed up messaging on abortion. That was her bitch. That she said, oh my gosh, they screwed up the messaging on abortion. They were too busy talking about crime, if you remember. And then Virginia's pushed back and says, well, if you're saying that's why we didn't do so hot, where was your money? How come you didn't put any investment whatsoever in helping us? If you thought our messaging really sucked, then where's the investment to help our messaging? Yeah. Where's the coordinated effort? Where are your staff members flying into Virginia to help us mount a counter argument on abortion so that we could have these discussions that you're talking about? Republicans run from abortion discussions. Huge mistake. Huge mistake. We ought to be talking more about it in a reasonable way, not less.
And
I personally don't think that we ought to have no abortion at all. Like I am as pro-life as they come. But there are circumstances where an abortion of an infant or abortion of a fetus, of an embryo, is legitimate. And the only example that I can think of, and I will fall on a sword over it, is if my wife
safety of the law
was pregnant as a mother, let's say we have 4 kids. Let's say she's pregnant with her 5th, and we know that her life is legitimately in danger. And so there are unique situations where you literally find yourself choosing between the mother and a baby, which is a horrific choice to make, but it's a no-brainer for me. And if it was up to me to make that choice for whatever reason, from a power of attorney perspective, and it happens all the time in medical situations, I would make that choice. But I'm erring on the side of life.
Life
That's
for life.
the point.
Yeah.
This is I'm choosing a human being over another human being who is legitimately in danger of dying. So to say there's absolutely no conditions under which you can have abortion, I think it's legitimate that people would fear those kinds.
But the
of policies.
messaging, but see, back to the messaging I've heard many times, not even for the safety of the life of the mom, not even for incest and rape and all that stuff. And that doesn't, look, incest and rape, I'm just saying logically, it doesn't change the innocence of the child.
Exactly.
The child is still innocent. It's horrific, absolutely horrific, evil, demonic, all that stuff. I think is horrible, but it doesn't change the innocence of that individual. That the child as an individual is still innocent. So, but again, you have to start somewhere. You're just not going to lose when you go from abortions to nothing. I think it's too much for people. I don't mean to reference it as cold turkey, but you're not going to get that. You're not going. The messaging isn't getting there to the people, and you got to start somewhere. And back in Bill Clinton's day, when Democrats, no one wanted to see abortions all the way up to the due date. They wanted it to be limited within a certain. Look, you have this amount of time to make a decision. Again, I'm not saying this is my advocacy point. I'm just saying this is where people can start, and then make your decision, or else no, it's not going to be legal after this time. I think.
And I think if you look at the DeSantis-Newsom debate, I think we learned 2 things. We learned why DeSantis isn't going to be president. Because even though he is solid on policy, he is as engaging as a mollusk.
I know, it's horrible. It really is horrible.
But that matters. I'm a substance over style guy. So far be it from me to, wax eloquently on this. But style does matter, and you do have to engage at some level. He's not engaging. He's not captivating. You have to bring people in. So we know why he's not going to be president. And with Newsom, we learned why he absolutely, under no circumstances, can be president. Because that guy is dangerous as shit.
Yeah.
So as dry as DeSantis is, Newsom is equally or more dangerous.
Because he can lie without even blinking.
But it's not about lying.
DeSantis called him slick, right, and slippery. And I think he's right. And it's unbelievable that he can sit there and lie with impunity. Mm-hmm. I mean, but this really is something else, that they're calling American citizens that stupid and doing it with a smile on their face.
But he's got the it factor. Yeah, Newsom does. He's got it. He's got it.
And therefore he can
he's
lie.
He's a quick thinker, Salo. He's charismatic. I mean, just think about it. Nobody pushed back on him. It's like, well, they're criticizing because we cleaned up San Francisco because of all these big people coming in. It's true. We did it because it's true. And why is that okay? Why is it okay for you to suck up to Xi Jinping and not to your citizens? No one's giving him the follow-up. I mean, a Tucker Carlson, a Patrick Bet-David, right. A Joe Rogan, somebody that would push back, even Megyn Kelly.
Why is that okay, Governor?
Why is that okay?
Yeah, why is that all right?
Dave Rubin, any of these. Bill Maher would push his balls, bust his buttons and bust his balls about it.
It's an excellent point. I mean, somebody should say, well, Governor, why is that okay? People who are watching tonight across American cities are wondering, well, you're not doing that for me.
Yeah, why is that okay?
Why don't I matter enough?
What do you look at them with all your charisma? This is what I would say. With all your charisma, let's look at the American people and tell them why that's okay. I'll put on the Jeopardy music. Go. I mean, so you gotta have that kind of pizzazz back a little bit. And yes, Ron doesn't have it, you know. I mean, he tried to. I mean, he tried to get funny. I saw this one clip where he goes, I was talking to a recent Floridian that moved from California and told me how much he likes and gave all that. And it was your in-laws, your father-in-law, or whatever it was. Yeah. I mean, and even his delivery on that wasn't as
but yet you read, and this is
he made the point though.
But you read excesses even in news media that I trust and that I like townhall.com or Red State, maybe even Fox News, and in some articles in Newsmax. But I mean, we sensationalize the impact that DeSantis had when he made that statement. Oh, he crushed.
It wasn't delivered
destroyed.
Well. Yeah.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he didn't.
I mean, it was delivered rather flatly. I mean, ha ha ha, but it wasn't that effective. And so I think that unfortunately we're in an age where you can lie with honor. You can sit there and you can lie about things that people know you're absolutely lying about. I mean, they just know tangibly, even in our own lives. I mean, it's like you have the weatherman on television saying, we have a perfectly sunny day. There's not a cloud in the sky. And you hear thunder and there's water coming down like sheets.
Right.
And the weatherman's telling you, no, you don't understand. It's absolutely crystal clear skies out there. There's just not a cloud around. You're looking out the window and it's torrential downpour. And we're in a situation right now in America where we believe the weatherman. That's where we are. We don't believe the evidence in front of our very eyes. That's dangerous.
Tell me what you think of this. I saw a clip or I read something where I like Harold Ford. You know, I mean, I think he's junior. I mean, he's not a Democrat anymore, but he'll figure it out at some point because he's just reasonable.
He just doesn't know it yet.
He just doesn't know it yet. But I mean, I wish. But if the Democrat Party was Harold Ford Jr., we'd be back. We'd be getting a lot of shit done. Sure. You know, between both sides, because I like Harold Ford. I disagree with him on certain things, but I like him overall. He gave them both a B+. I didn't watch the whole debate. And the takeaway I took from his analysis was B+ for Ron on policy and facts, evidence, B+ for Gavin on delivery. But that was an interesting, like his presentation, his pizzazz, his charisma. I mean, he just has it. Sure. And it's dangerous. He's dangerous. The only saving factor against a Gavin Newsom is that he's done such a shitty job as governor. Yeah. I mean, seriously. If he was even a decent governor or an okay governor, he'd be dangerous.
No, that's right. And I think this should have been, it really should have been pushed much more effectively. The fact that there's been an exodus out of California, you've had over 1 million residents.
That's crazy.
Just flee California. And so you just look population for population. The number of people in California population-wise has dropped while it's increased in Florida. It kind of says something.
Yeah, sure.
And he should have just driven that home over and over and over and over again. He should have talked economics, you know. But
haven't you been hearing the stories on national news about the Texans that are leaving Texas because they can't take it anymore and they're going to California and Florida? I'm like, where? Have you driven around in traffic?
I think there is a term in the average lexicon for that. I think it's called bullshit.
Right.
This is gaslighting. This is propagandizing. Okay. I think that we have a party right now that's so effective at this. We're not effective at it. And there's a part of me that says, do we want to be effective at lying? We don't want to be effective at lying, but we gotta find a way to communicate the truth in a more engaging, more relevant, more entertaining, more substantive way, and we're just not doing it.
Look, I'm ready to quote. Thank you for giving this. Give this to me, Saulo. Ray McFarland. Interesting point. He says, I hope you enjoy your pro-life win. The price was our republic. The U.S. cannot survive with Democrats in charge, and Republicans cannot win enough to have power as long as they are pro-life. Which is worse, abortion or the end of the U.S. and freedom of the world?
Okay, look, it's a false choice.
Well, it is a false choice, Ray. In our humble opinion, here you go, Saulo. Thank you. But if he's speaking to the strategy which we talked about, I don't think it's not. I think it's a noble and a good cause to fight for life. I don't understand why that's a false choice. But I think the way you do it and your approach, I think matters. I think we exhibited that. I don't know when he made that comment versus us kind of analyzing the way even Democrats used to advocate for it and where we're at in the messaging. And are conservatives losing the messaging war? Absolutely. I mean, I think Republicans piss the shit out of me at times because they're not comfortable in their skin. They don't know how to talk. I mean, just be real and authentic and raw and just talk facts and learn how to present them and get good candidates, and Ray's got a point in the sense of at the false choice. But I think we can advocate for life, because what are you saying, Ray? I mean, my follow-up to Mr. McFarland is, are you saying we should be unequivocally pro-choice, meaning abortions up to what point, Ray? If I may call you Ray, is it to due date? I'm assuming you're not advocating perinatal abortions, but which is infanticide. So let's just stick to due date. Are you a due date? What's your point, Ray? And I would listen, because I received the criticism, not to us, but to the argument. But what's the answer?
Yeah.
I mean, we got to have, so we can't just complain. We got to complain with a solution. And our solution is we've got to have an open discussion. I think Nikki Haley, on this issue, she polls better on it than other people on what she says. And we've got to say, look, we had it kind of figured out for a while, in the sense of, I'm not saying that, and you got to educate a populace before they're going to vote differently. I mean, when you're going to do a bond issue, let's say a county wants a bond to pass.
Yeah.
You know what they do? They pay a shit ton of money to a PR firm to start educating, you know this, Karen, to start educating the populace before they vote. SAPOA did it also on that bill to defund the police. SAPOA put San Antonio Police Officers Association. They put a ton of money into educating before you make the vote. I mean, there's a prescription here, so you have to come up with a solution where, okay, let's do the for now position, and then let's educate, and then we change people's hearts and minds. You don't just do it.
It used to be that just the truth worked, but it doesn't anymore. There has to be, if you think the truth as a Republican or a conservative works, then you have to look at past elections like Joe Gonzalez, and you say to yourself, money and advertising doesn't work, but it does work. It absolutely works, and people need to stop just
on that. You brought up now. You hit a nerve. On Joe Gonzalez. Look, I mean, you're seeing the media not protect him anymore.
Finally,
it's really, I mean, SAPOA's finally said, look, we're not playing political
because
games
he tried
anymore.
to point the finger at them.
Well, of course. Well, look, you get in bed with the devil's gonna fuck you. Sorry, there's no other way to say it. I mean, that's just, there's no other way to say it.
That's kind of how it works.
That's how it works. I mean, and it's and it's not on your will. It's while you're asleep, by the way. I mean, so this is how. So SAPOA finally said, look, we have nothing to lose and everything to gain. I can't tell you, and I say this humbly, and I get calls every week, and I mean, oh, you're right, do this, like, it's too much, it's destroyed, this county's going to hell in a handbasket. You have KSAT and all the media talking about, I mean, in a period of time when I was district attorney, I was shocked they did this story, because they never do this stuff. But when I was DA during a period of time when Joe, I mean, we had 8,000 more cases during that period of time, but they had twice the dismissals. They have twice the dismissals. They're understaffed. The culture's horrible. He's a terrible leader.
People are quitting or quit.
He's a coward of a man, or I'll say that very loosely, and I'll say it to his face. He wouldn't have the balls to stand in front of me. But I'm saying that objectively. I have nothing personal against him, to be honest with you. Even though he made it personal with me, I have nothing personal. I'm just calling balls and strikes. But now we're seeing these ideas. This is why. Remember, how long have I said this? Engage people in the arena of ideas. Forget about the tribe. Forget about the label. Democrat, Republican, conservative, progressive, whatever. I've had wonderful conversations with people that are quote unquote progressive, and just talked about ideas. Believe it or not, Anthony Postello, is he on? Anthony Postello and I, we exchanged text messages. Our friend that
I remember,
I've said, hey, call me, Anthony. We're going to go to lunch. I'd love to go to lunch. And he actually said, I'd enjoy going to lunch with you. And he gave me his cell number. I texted him. He texted me back. We're working on our schedules. Weekends are better for him. Weekdays are better for me. And I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to a wonderful fellowship with Anthony. And we're going to talk. And we need to do that. We need to engage in ideas. This whole tribal, you're the enemy. Okay, your ideas are my enemy. You may be my enemy. I don't know yet. But can we engage in ideas and see which ones work? Go ahead. Sorry.
No,
I saw.
You're looking at me like you're
I am, because you said a lot of you said a lot of important stuff. But I mean, I'm still back at Ray McFarland.
Oh, sorry.
I am, because I think that. While it's a very important issue, and it's something Republicans should pay attention to, and we need to get better at messaging, I think that Ray McFarland's premise is flawed, and I just want to respond to it. I just think I think it's overstated. I'm frankly sick of it. I am. I'm tired of hearing how abortion is. It's the issue that's going to do us in. I don't believe it. I don't believe it for a second. I think it's an issue. It's a critical issue. I think we need to get better at messaging. All of that said. But if you look at the results, electoral results, it's just a crock of shit.
Well, explain that, George.
Well, first of all, look at we don't talk about it. We focus on the Ohio referendum. It's an off-cycle issue. And so usually when you have initiatives that are off-year referendums, you have active proponents that focus on that issue in an off-election year. That's typical. But that doesn't translate to 2024. It is a national election, and nationally, people are not Ohioans. You're not going to see that happening. Right. You're not. Look at the Louisiana election that just recently happened. You had three state-level wins by pro-life candidates at the treasurer level, secretary of state, attorneys general. Jeff Landry won 52%. These are decidedly pro-lifers. And if you look at Louisiana's abortion policy, they've literally outlawed abortion for the purposes of describing abortion policy. They've essentially outlawed it. Pro-lifers destroyed their opponents in that election. If you look at the November 2022 elections, pro-life governors across the board won decidedly. Ohio, including in Ohio. If you look at Mike DeWine, for instance, in Iowa, in South Dakota, in Georgia, we just mentioned now in Louisiana, it just doesn't make sense. So I just don't buy the notion.
You're not there yet. You're not. Yeah.
I just don't see it. I'm not seeing it. You can pick a particular set of data and you can make it look like it's more important and that it's depictive of the general set. But Ray, you're making a mistake if you think it was a death knell. Roe v. Wade was shitty law. And I'm glad it was overturned. The decisions should go back to the states. The states should toil and wrestle over these issues as they should. Democrats are spinning that toil and that wrestle into something more critical than what it actually is. They're very effective at it. They're a hell of a lot more effective than we are. But I don't care how effective you are at calling a lie the truth. It doesn't make it the truth. Period. End of story. So look at the results. And I think the Republicans should get better at messaging without killing a fly with an elephant gun. Don't go too far here. Don't think that the American population generally is all of a sudden pro-choice. That's just not how it works. Period. Look at the numbers.
So now,
sorry for the sermon.
No, so now that you're talking about elections, I'm trying to if we recall the last election, I don't know if it was the perfect storm, if it was something that was unleashed to allow for the cheat, and I'm talking about COVID. Now we get news that there's this new Chinese respiratory infection, and I'm wondering why all of a sudden this is becoming news. Is it because the elections are getting closer and closer? What does it mean for the United States? I've even heard some people say that the election is going to be canceled because
I've heard people say that.
I'm like, wait, what? That happened in Ukraine because of their guy, but could that even happen here? Because didn't people learn their lesson about closing down America with COVID, and can it happen again?
I think it's an issue because it's reflecting how COVID made its way on the national stage back from 2019 to 2020, and people are getting a sense of deja vu, Nico. I think that's what's concerning. And it's miraculously coming up, on the eve of an election. And so I think people are legitimately prickly about it. And the way China is responding is very similar to what they did in 2019. Yeah. They're being really cagey, talk about gaslighting. They're calling the West overreactionary, and of course this is racist because we would have an issue with wanting to restrict travel, which is what Trump did in January of 2020. We're seeing a lot of similarities here. We're seeing the WHO carry the water for China again, and we've already talked about that in here, how the head of the WHO really does carry the water for China because he is a communist. He was a communist before he became the head of the WHO. This is Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, who is an Ethiopian nationalist. The guy is a member of the Tigrayan People's Liberation Party, which is the communist party in Ethiopia. He's a malaria expert, but he's also a devoted communist. And China lobbied very hard for his election as the head of the WHO in 2017. And whenever China makes a public statement about public health, the WHO seems to parrot it right along. They did this on January 20th, 2020. See that long-term play?
Do you see what George? You just passed over what George said. So China lobbied for his appointment in 2017. They play long ball,
Yep.
man. China
Yep.
is on the. They're not thinking right now, and They're not addicted to their feelings like Americans are. They're playing. They have a strategy.
Absolutely.
They're playing long ball. Good, George. I'm
I
sorry.
was going to say,
that
look at the
wasn't-
memo, because so we're sitting here on the eve of, oh my gosh, there's a surge of respiratory illness and childhood pneumonia in China, northern China. From what we're hearing, it's filling hospitals. You see people in hazmat suits. And so now you have members of Congress legitimately saying, we need to make sure we're on our guard. We push the CDC to investigate and to work much more closely with the WHO and get to the bottom of this. Unfortunately, news coming out of China is always shrouded in mystery because it's a closed society. So what do we believe? Well, we do know that there's a legitimate issue. What does the World Health Organization do? The World Health Organization is basically saying, well, this is not a new pathogen, so we don't really have that concern. It's just a resurgence of known pathogens such as RSV, for instance, which just happens right around this time of the year. It is an issue. We got to be on our guard. So they seem to basically report the same kinds of things that China reports. If China's alarmed, they're alarmed. If China's not alarmed, they're not alarmed. This is what happened. If you go back to January 14th of 2020, the WHO basically said, people remember this, Nico, they said, there's no evidence whatsoever that COVID-19 poses any harm with regard to human transmission. Now, where does that come from? You can literally see the exact same statement coming out of China, same day. And so, did COVID-19 have a human transmission problem? I think it did.
Yeah.
So you were worried that the same kind of thing is happening, and we're worried that that's going to get spun into lockdowns, into other draconian measures to restrict movement in the United States. And I think those are legitimate concerns. Do you think there's any truth to the notion that come hell or high water, they're never going to allow Trump back in the White House?
Absolutely.
Sure.
That's just-
I don't know, because this is a corollary of what you just said and what Karen just said. Well, they're never going to allow an election. Okay, but step back a moment. Let's just talk about Trump Biden. What are the chances that Trump is going to get back into the White House, as strong as he looks electorally right now? Because I don't think it's too soon to start asking that question. I think people are worried that there is a legitimate effort to keep him from getting back into the White House, regardless of how the votes go. And if that's true, if that's where we are right now, America's over. The country's over. If we're at a point where elections don't matter, and I'm talking way beyond cheating.
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about cheating anymore. Then the country, as we know, is over. I'm not prepared to accept that because I love this country and I owe so much to this country, and I want my kids to enjoy a prosperous future in this God-blessed country. I'm not prepared to accept it, but I fear that we may be closer to
But
that.
what would it take for them to actually call off an election? I mean, could that even happen?
It never happened. I mean, that I know of.
Let me give you a scenario. A scenario where you have mass chaos. And I'm not just talking because I didn't any one thing. I know we keep coming back to the border, Nico. What's happening at the border is grotesquely chaotic. What I think is weirdly disconnected is Congress saying we got to push back on what we're hearing about China. The CDC has to do a better job getting their arms around this issue, because we're concerned about these surges here. By the way, we're already starting to see surges in pneumonia here. We're seeing it in Massachusetts. We're seeing it in Ohio. So we're seeing pockets of resurgence in RSV that are higher than the normal cycles. And so we're wondering if this is connected. Thank you, Sally.
Sally has it already.
I appreciate the exhibit. Well done, brother. Well done. So we're seeing those kinds of surges. Congress is pushing back and saying if this has something to do with what's going on in China. And I'm sitting back saying, what the fuck is wrong with these people? Have you seen our border? I mean, I don't understand. Like, it's sitting right here. Like, we need to investigate. We have no border. We have thousands of Chinese nationals that have come over the border, Nico. I mean, what is it going to take for us to step back and saying this isn't a mystery? So we have no border. We have constant dangers of violence in this country. We've seen fomented violence from truly radical groups, and they're not on the right. That consistently comes from the left. We see it from Antifa. We see transgender violence, which is proportionally higher right now in that demographic, which we've talked about here. We see the radical fringes of BLM, and it's not two people; it's the majority of the BLM movement. So I'm saying we have multiple prongs of chaos that I think are closer to being unleashed at any moment. If you have that kind of unrest, the federal government is well positioned to miraculously come in and be the savior of the world. And in order to do that, they will dispense with civil liberties to do that. I don't think that's radical. I don't. And I think you have a growing number of people in the country who are willing to accept it. And COVID-19 proves it. What we did in COVID, can you believe that in America, Nico, that our liberties could be suspended with such ease and that people would do it voluntarily?
Well, no, I couldn't have believed that until it happened. But what I'm hoping and praying for is that people, and by the way, Ray McFarland had a comment back, so I want to make sure we don't ignore Ray. Ray, hope you're staying on. We'll get you in a second. But I hope that people saw that insanity. We've said this for months and almost years that COVID obviously was real. It just wasn't a real threat to people that are healthy. I mean, we just saw that. I mean, flus miraculously. How do you get rid of the flu? You have COVID. Apparently, there was very little flu. All this other shit. But what I'm not seeing, and what I'm happy to not see, a lot of people wearing masks.
Yeah, right.
I'm not. I mean, with all this shit that George just said and how they're trying to get, I don't know if people just said like, screw you. I mean, every once in a while I saw some.
No, when you see them, you're like, ooh, what?
Me and Maya were driving last night. It's a Christmas concert, but they want to call it a winter concert. It irritates me. And we're driving and I look to the right and I said, oh, and she goes, what, puppy? And she looks over and she's like, oh, stay calm. By herself in her car with a mask on. I was like, whatever. I mean, what are you going to do? That's a one-off. But I'm not seeing a lot of people wearing masks. I'm very pleased about that. So my point, what am I saying? Are people just irritated? It's like, no, not anymore. I know people that are angry. When I'm not talking about disappointed. I'm talking about angry that they took the vaccine. I mean, angry.
Oh, I know people the same.
And like Megyn Kelly says, she has effects of it, right? I know people that are saying that. So is there going to be this back? I don't know. I don't know that they can do the same thing, George. I think more people have woken up. Was this kind of did they wake up the sleeping giant? I don't know. I'm praying. That's what my prayer is.
I don't mind if I use the word awakened. Would you? Because woke is just a little too...
Well, take it back. Take it back.
I'm just joking. No, I think you're right. I think people are more sensitive to it. But I am... But again, we're winning... We're losing the war of messaging. Which gets back,
100%.
Back to our common ground with Ray.
Yeah.
We're losing the war with messaging. And in a situation like this, we have people who are very good at spin. And they will literally convince you that they are better equipped to run your life than you are.
But why is it only one side, George? Why is only one side hiring that PR company?
I hate to say it, but if we think that there's huge daylight between Republicans and Democrats on critical issues, we're fooling ourselves. The reality is that there's plenty of Republicans that benefit from this. And we need to deal with that reality.
It's funny when George was saying all that. I read it popped up. Illegal migrants land on the beach near the homes of Hollywood stars near Streisand. I mean, they're everywhere. I mean, right after the Newsom debate. I mean, to this point, to George's point. I mean, this issue, I think, is really between our liberties being suspended. I'm praying people are waking up. The reason why you said earlier, Karen, about are these just podcast people? Well, hold on. Joe Rogan speaks for a number of people. And people, he influences folks, no doubt about that. So for Joe to say, "I'm voting for Trump over Biden," that's big. For even this guy Fisher, the BLM leader, to just say, "What have they done for us?" It's a seed. If it's a seed big enough to keep people home, that's a win for normality and logic. And again, I'm not saying that everybody on the conservative side is like the beacon of normalcy. So when you see people waking up that way, when Bill Maher is advocating, he's really advocating away people from the ideas of the Democrats without saying he's going to jump in himself. Okay, I'll take your advocacy. Does he lose his logic when he compares Mike Johnson to Hamas, yes, he's absolutely nuts, and I would love to debate him on that. Anybody can get me on Bill Maher, get me on with that dude. He can smoke his dope, and I'll intoxicate him with some
You'll
facts.
wear the mask then.
I'll wear the mask, but all I'm saying, I would love to. I like Bill. I disagree with him, but I like him, and I would love to have a conversation with him. So all I'm saying is that means something. I don't know what it means. It means something though, because all these people, when you have this echo chamber of everybody just shitting on any ideas that are labeled conservative or Republican or Trump or whatever, and so when someone comes up to me and says, and they criticize Trump, if I agree with them, I say, I agree with you. Oh, you do? I was like, I do. But what? So what are you saying? I mean, but what does that mean? Does that mean I'm going to vote for the? I was like, that's like someone saying I'm going to eat this pile of dog shit because I hate broccoli. Okay, well, I don't like broccoli, but I still eat it.
Sure,
I'm going to eat broccoli.
Yeah, pick your poisons and pick the right one.
Yeah, I'm not going to eat dog shit.
Yeah,
I mean, so it's that type of conversation. I just think we need to wake up.
I don't know that there's any rational person who wouldn't say that they were doing much better when Trump was in office. If you look back, seriously, if you look back at the basic economics and your ability to keep the lights on, inflationary pressures,
buy food,
paying for gas,
I'm just
necessities,
laughing.
commodities.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a no-brainer.
Really. And let's go back to Ray. I'm sorry. I want to give.
Well, let me tell you what he said, because I don't think you were talking about him per se. He said the idea that this position is, quote, full of shit is someone with an extremely closed mind. It's a very least worthy of a discussion. I don't think you were saying. I mean, I think you were commenting to it's not the boogeyman argument, but you weren't saying that.
No, the idea. I'm going back to, and if you go back to his original quote, that I hope you're happy that you got your vote because you're going to lose as a result. That's just completely not true. Again, let me just say this again, okay? Just like Joe Rogan speaks for a lot of people, and he has this sort of finger on the pulse of something that a lot of people agree with. I mean, this guy has a huge following. Governors speak for their states. And we're just going to have to wrestle with this basic reality that every single pro-life governor who ran for re-election in November of 2022 won, and won by large margins, and they didn't run away from abortion. I'm going to say that again. Every single pro-life governor who ran for re-election in November of 22 won by very large margins. And they did not run for the issue. They actually provided leadership on the issue of life. Period. Yeah. And if you look at the turnout, I'm just looking at trying to apples to apples here. If you look at the turnout in Ohio, it was substantially lower, I think, than in November. Yeah. So I just don't think that abortion is that huge albatross around the neck of Republicans. We just got to do a much better message.
But I think to Ray's point, it's worth the discussion. And if he was trying to make that point, he's right. We've said that. We said that 2 weeks ago.
If it's the messaging point, I'm on board.
Yeah, he's 100%.
But the idea that the country is now decidedly pro-choice is just not true. I think Americans are.
But Tom, George, because I want to say because but there's some nuances in there. I mean, when someone says they're pro-choice, I know a lot of people that are pro-choice, but are not pro-choice on the due date. So that's
you stole my thunder, but that's exactly right.
I'm sorry, brother. Go ahead.
That's
finish.
The crux.
Everybody's always stealing George's thunder.
No, the vast majority of Americans, the polling shows that a vast majority of Americans support a compromise policy in which early, limited abortion is
Bill Clinton
is available.
Bill Clinton a long time ago, right?
And unfortunately, the polarized message supports an all or nothing approach. That's the only thing people hear right now.
Yes, I agree with that.
And that's not. I think Americans know exactly what abortion is, but Republicans are doing a shitty job at election time, reminding them, and countering the bullshit from the Democrat side. The Democrats are just much more effective, and we better wake the hell up soon here because we're running out of daylight.
What about Musk?
Even though it wasn't political, when I watched the recent interview, was it the New York Times that interviewed Elon Musk, and he talked about advertisers that were dropping and how it was affecting him, and he said, GFU. I laughed so hard because I thought, please let this be the attitude to everything in America, to say no more evil winning. And that's exactly what he said.
It was interesting. Man, someone sent it to me.
It was amazing.
Someone sent it to me, and because I've read the headline. I said, I got to watch this real quick. And I watched it in a little faster speed because he talks kind of slow. And I don't have a lot of time. And so, but it was interesting. He was saying, sounds like the questioner, the interviewer was trying to say, it sounds like you're trying to make an apology tour and you're trying to, he's like, no, don't advertise. What do you mean don't advertise? Fuck off. What? And the silence, you could have heard a cockroach fart, right? And so he goes, what are you talking about? And he says, the idea, yeah, go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. Thank you, Salo.
Yeah.
Thank you, Salo. But he says the idea that you're gonna hold me ransom for money, go fuck yourself.
Blackmail
Let me say it really,
yeah.
Go yourself. I mean, he said it over and over again. He goes, well, then what are you gonna do? The company will go down, and then they'll have to answer to, I don't know what he meant by Earth. I guess to the people, they'll have to answer to Earth, and let's see what happens. And we'll make it very public.
That was a threat.
What do you mean?
Was this? You let Earth is going to find out.
Earth, but threat from whom? He's saying people in your business is going to hurt. That's the way I took
But
it.
he's, in other words, he's saying, you get off on my platform, I'm going to tell everybody on
To get off your platform, absolutely. No, I think that's what it was. It's like because people enjoy the exchange of X, Twitter, whatever it is, and it's been a form of communication for a long time now. I'm not on
And
it,
that's
but
why
I know
he
I probably
wanted to
should
buy
be.
it in the first place.
Walmart just stepped out yesterday.
Who?
Walmart.
Stepped out of what?
Advertising on X.
Okay, well then let's see what happens. Let's play out the theory. Look, in the end, I always tell people, what are you prepared to do?
Yeah.
When the bully says, hey, I want your lunch or I'm going to break your nose. No, I'm going to break your nose. No. What are you prepared? I'm prepared to break your nose. What are you prepared to do? I'm ready to engage. I'm prepared to engage. When I say that to clients, I say that when we're going to try a case. What are you prepared to do?
Yeah.
And so Musk, Elon, he's backed this up. If someone's making an analysis, and if I'm Walmart, I'm thinking, how did that work out for Disney? How did that work out for so-and-so? How did that work out for, Disney is continuing to bomb.
Yeah.
And now they're open about their bullshit. And now whether you want to criticize that Ron DeSantis took it too far, whatever, criticize all you want. He obviously took a popular position and people spoke. People canceled. This is how capitalism works. I believe in cancel culture, but I believe in the people canceling you because you either have a crappy idea or a crappy product and people vote with their money. But their own free will to vote. I believe in free agency and free will. And so he's testing the waters. Walmart pulled out, and if he says he's going to do what he's going to do, then he's going to be very vocal about it. And then let's see what happens to Walmart.
Daily Wire spent $250,000 on Lady Ballers. They came out yesterday.
I saw that.
Did you
No,
see
250,000 or million?
Thousand.
On Twitter.
On Twitter.
Oh, yes.
To promote Lady Ballers.
Yeah. Good. That's going to be funny as shit.
Andrew Tate's going to give him $1 million to promote X on X every month.
Good for
Yeah.
Tate, man.
Yeah.
See, this is my point. Can you call balls and strikes? Do I disagree with some certain things that Andrew Tate stands for and advocates? Yes, but that is good for Andrew Tate, man. Good for him.
I think to say that I can't stand Tate is an understatement.
I know.
And I disagree with a lot of what he says. I agree with some of what he says. And I agree strongly with some of what he says.
Yeah.
Strongly. And I disagree strongly with a lot of what he says. Again, it comes back ultimately for me, my main gripe is that I think he dehumanizes women. He trivializes them. He objectifies the shit out of them. And as a dad, brother, you keep saying that there's somehow this marked change between past and present. I disagree with that, and I'm happy to send you articles with clips and quotes with sources to that end. There's no change in that regard. Andrew Tate hasn't changed in that regard. He objectifies women. His brother objectifies them too. They're out there publicly doing so. I can't stand that shit. I don't like it. I'm the father of three. I'm the father of three girls, and that shit drives me crazy. I'm not a wallflower. I can handle a lot, and my kids aren't thin-skinned. They can handle a lot. But the shit that Andrew Tate says crosses the line. All that said, he has a right to say it.
That's right. That's right.
That's where I stand, and I will die for his right to say it.
That's right.
How about that?
100%.
He has a right to say it. I really I don't understand how the hell we got to this point. I do. I'm speaking rhetorically. I know exactly how we got to this point. But it's mind-boggling to me, Nico, that we're at a place in America where we're busy censoring each other well, you can't say that. Well, if you say that, I'm going to do this. And if you said, you ought to be able to say whatever the hell you want to say.
I am almost a free speech absolutist.
How can we even having this conversation
I'm
in this
almost
country?
a free speech absolutist, 100%.
You can say whatever the hell you want to say it.
I'm going to say something in a second.
People in the marketplace of ideas will say, you know what? I don't think I want to listen to that
That's
shit
right.
anymore, and I'm going to tune you out. There's a dial, and you'll turn you off. Period. End of story. I'll just turn you off, or I'll turn you on. But I have a right to do that. People have a right to do that in this country. What? How the fuck did we get here?
Man,
this
George,
is insane.
I paused myself because George triggered me. No, in a good way. In a good way. I want him to finish. I keep stealing his thunder. I am almost, like I said, a free speech absolutist. I mean, there's certain things, like if somebody's saying, hey, shoot that son of a bitch, we got to get out of here. No, you're going to be held accountable under the law of parties. You know, you can't yell fire I get that, in a movie theater. And I agree with that. But it doesn't I can't stand jokes towards special needs people. I'm going to say the word, even though I hate this word. I hate this word. I hate the word retard. I hate it. When I mean hate it, I mean I hate it. My son is not mentally retarded. He's not MR. He's on the spectrum of autism. But some people, when they see a kid, a Rain Man, they say, oh, look at the retard. I mean, when I say it, let me say, I fucking hate it. How about that? But I will defend any comedian's right to make jokes about mentally handicapped children, kids on the spectrum, or quote unquote retards. I won't listen to them. I'll tell them I don't think anybody else should, but that's your choice. But they have a right to say it. That's how passionate I am about free speech. And so I love that Elon Musk feels obviously the same way. If we don't have free speech, then we don't have free thought. If we don't have free thought, we have no freedom. Period, end of story. You have a right. I have a right to be stupid. I have a right to be a dumbass. How about that? I have a right to express my dumbassery. How about I'll make up a word. Yeah. I have a right to. And I will defend people's right to it. I'm telling you, good for Elon Musk. God bless him. I hope the Lord continues to bless him. I don't know if he's a Christian, but I hope he continues to bless him.
He's Muslim.
And
is he really?
He's Muslim.
Elon Musk?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, Tate is, yeah.
Tate, this week. Okay.
His brother's Christian.
Yeah. I got to talk about that.
I think that nothing captures the essence of the First Amendment better than that last minute and a half that Nico was talking about on this. I mean, that really captures the essence of it. The First Amendment exists specifically to protect offensive speech, not to protect the easily offended from being offended.
Right.
The First Amendment exists to protect vile and offensive speech. Because remember, to some extent, that is subjective. Nico is angered by the use of the term retard because it trivializes and dehumanizes legitimate special needs people who are afflicted by by some sort of special need or special condition. That turns his stomach. There's other stuff that turns my stomach. That's among the things that turn my stomach. But at the same time, for us to be willing to say, I'll die to defend your right. Yeah. I will die to defend your right to offend me.
Amen.
That's the essence of the First Amendment.
Amen.
And if we lose that, we're fucked.
Yeah.
There is no future for a country that censors the speech of its citizens. Because as we always say, fundamentally, if you can't talk freely, if you can't express freely, then you can't think freely. Because all speech is a natural product of thoughts that you've thought. And we're heading in that direction. Yeah. And I'm disgusted by it. I really am. And where is this coming from? This comes from the American educational system, because we put people in the classes that aren't into classes, demographic and political classes. We teach these early in the American educational system that certain people aren't worthy of being listened to. That's learned behavior. And this is sick. And there's no future for a country that continues to build on that.
Didn't the entire Elon Musk thing start because of a
Media Matters.
Okay, talk about that a little bit, because wasn't it about him? Well, they're accusing him of being anti-Semitic, or
he attacked Media Matters for being a front for the Democrat Party on X, and he's right. They are. Media Matters is basically a storefront for them, and then I think he opened a lawsuit against them for for defamation. So it comes from that, and that's where it started. And they were making comments about Jewish communities, and then it was anti-Semitic, called anti-Semitic. I think didn't he agree with them at first, because what they said was that. He said, "You have said the actual truth." I remember. Didn't
Yes,
he say that?
that's what he said.
I'm trying to remember the post. I don't have it in front of me, but it was a post that claimed that Jewish communities have been pushing for the exact same kind of hatred, or for hatred against white people, right? And here's the essence of what he's saying. The post was that Jewish communities have been pushing for the exact same hatred against whites that they want to see stopped against them by other groups. And I think Musk said, you have said the actual truth. I think he agreed with that.
Is it true?
And here's...
But I'm saying factually, is it true? I don't know if I've never heard that.
Is it factually what true?
What Elon Musk said.
What Musk said.
Or the statement.
Yeah, whatever.
Yes. So
it is true?
The post said that Jewish people are realizing hordes of minorities that support flooding their country don't exactly like them too much. I mean, that's I think that's what he's saying. And so
what's wrong with that?
Well, it's the notion is that
Everything
it's anti-Semitic.
Everything is anti-Semitic. Everything's anti-LGBT. No one ever says anything's anti-Christian or anti-conservative. We're the Christian phobes. We're the label of being a Jesus phobe or a Christian phobe. It's fucking bullshit. If I disagree with a person who happens to be Jewish or happens to be black or happens to be Indian, I'm not anti-India. I'm not anti-black. I'm not anti-LGBT. I mean, you can't disagree with shit. You have to hate each other to disagree. That is such a stupid standard. It's horrible standard. It's ridiculous. I criticize other Mexicans, other Lebanese people. Am I anti-Mexican? Well, no, you're Mexican.
That's what Ben Shapiro
So
said with
I found. And Nico,
is that what it is?
Nico, I apologize. I was trying to pull from memory, and I got about 70% of it right.
Okay, well, give me the 30.
Here's from PJ Media. Musk came under fire over the last week for replying, quote, "You have said the actual truth." So I got that right.
Okay.
I was trying to remember who had posted. The post actually came from somebody that claimed Jewish communities have been, quote, pushing the exact kind of dialectical hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them. The original post also stated that Jewish people are realizing, quote, hordes of minorities that support flooding their country don't exactly like them too much. And so when Musk said, "You have said the actual truth," Media Matters picked up the story, and of course a bunch of other mainstream media outlets, and accused or labeled Musk an anti-Semite. That's what happened there. And then Musk came back and said, "What are you talking about? Nothing could be further from the truth. I'm not an anti-Semite." He said, "I only wish the best for humanity and prosperity for everyone." And so I think that, to your point, I think we had to step back.
Yes,
look
man.
at what was said. Look at the context. Elon Musk is not an anti-Semite.
I'll give you an example. I always
give me a fucking break.
I always talk about context matters. So early, this is like 20 years ago, I was representing a client on a DWI case, and it was before blood draws and all that stuff. And so I'm reading, and he goes like, "I really want to try my case." I said, "Okay, well, let's look at the evidence," and we're prepping for trial. It's over months. And I'm looking, before I looked at the body, that dashboard, they didn't have body cams back then, just dashboard video, so you only could see what's in front. And it says in the report, AP stands for arrested person. AP said he's never been this drunk before. AP also stated he doesn't get this drunk. He's never been this drunk before, and he doesn't normally get this drunk. And I said, shit, that's a terrible statement from AP, from the client, the defendant. So the government's going to use that against your, I mean, it's like,
right.
You said you're drunk. Forget about us saying you're drunk. I was like, well, that sucks. So I'm watching the dashboard. I was like, damn, he sounds good. No slurred speech. I mean, okay, his driving is a little wacky, but it wasn't intoxicated driving, speeding. That's not a sign of intoxication. Okay. He gets out fine, looks, talks, reasonable. Where's the statement? Does the field sobriety test and actually does fairly well on them. And you know, I won't get into a tutorial on those things, but he actually does fairly well. And I said, this is a triable case. Where's the statement? So I'm waiting. I'm looking at the reports, and well, at the end, he's in custody. He's like, Mr. So-and-so, do you feel like you're intoxicated? No. Do you normally get this intoxicated? No. Have you ever been this intoxicated before? No.
Oh my God.
I mean, talk about a trick. And then the way he wrote down on the report, the officer's asking the question. There's not a shot against all officers. There's this one circumstance. And he's like, wait a minute. Do you normally get this intoxicated? No. Have you ever been this intoxicated before? AP didn't say he doesn't normally get this intoxicated and he's never been. You asked him. Now, should the answer have been, wait a minute, I said I'm not intoxicated. You shouldn't have asked me questions 2 and 2.
But if you wouldn't have looked at that whole thing.
That's like me saying to Saulo, hey, Saulo, do you still beat your wife?
Yeah.
No. Saulo used to beat his wife. I didn't say that. I said, do you still beat your wife? You inferred you used to, asshole. That would be completely dishonest.
But wasn't
so? That's why that's why whenever we analyze issues, I was like, hold on, let's take a step back. What was really said? Screw the soundbite. I want to get to the facts. I want to look at the evidence
the horse has left the barn, because I mean, Musk threatened a quote thermonuclear lawsuit, and then actually filed a lawsuit against Media Matters in Fort Worth, Texas. Ken Paxton has also opened a lawsuit to that end. Now, what I think is interesting, and this is what I was trying to read, Nico, while you were talking, because I was trying to tie what you were saying to where this goes from here. Because where does it go from here? Because it's an open forum. You can say what you want on X. He's worked really hard to open X up, especially since its previously censorious positions during the 2020 elections. I think Musk has tried more than most to open up X to free speech. What I think is interesting is that now he is suing Media Matters for defamation, but he's suing him for a statement that they made on X.
Well,
so
that's funny.
So in Musk's view, does everybody have a right to bitch at Musk and call him an anti-Semite except for Media Matters, or does no one have a right to do that? In which case, does it not weaken his position? That
I think it hurts him.
Anyway, I'm just trying to make sense.
I didn't know the
principle.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's unspecified damages in the lawsuit, so it opens up the potential punitive damages to a substantial sum.
Well, when you're talking about defamation, it's different when you have someone in a public space like that. You have less protections, but yet being called this anti-Semite and how they pushed it or how extensive they did versus their opinion. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to look at the specifics of the allegations of the lawsuit. Yeah. To look at that. But you're right. I mean, if he's a free speech absolutist, then he should let them say what he wants within reason, right? If someone goes and defames you and tries to say, oh, you know, this company sucks with their product, and they put it out there and they're lying. They're just lying about that. Obviously, do you say free speech, tough shit, and get rid of defamation claims? The Huffington kid or Rittenhauser?
Covenant.
I mean, what do you say? Covenant and that kid, Rittenhouse? Was that his name, Rittenhauser? Rittenhouse. I mean, no.
Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah, Kyle. So you there's some limits to it. So I mean, I have to look at the specifics, George. But it's a valid point to ask.
And so now, but we're seeing a cascade of people running away from, which I think is asinine. This is the kind of shit that drives me crazy. Apple, is it Apple? Apple, Disney, IBM, right? I mean, it just kind of makes me sick. I mean, really, enough already? Okay. I mean,
it's a whole other subject, but what your story reminds me of, you know,
which one?
He had never been this drunk before, is we're the government and we're here to help.
Yeah.
How that comment
Some of
was
the most frightening
recently
words. Yes. Yes.
misconstrued and lied about by the other side. You know, we have 4 minutes, and Salo's given me the
Okay.
The X.
All right.
The X. That's what we look good. We always wanted to. Not just because the I guess the radio portion of it, because the Elf Louise, which hopefully if it's on your heart to donate to an organization that will bless children that are less fortunate,
Absolutely.
Please consider that. I mean, Christmas is a time of celebration. We always say, we did a commercial. I just wanted to be very overt about it. We celebrate the birth of Christ. George and I teach on this, and we've talked about it. Sorry if I want to burst someone's bubble. No, Jesus wasn't born on December 25th historically. Okay, I hope most people know that. But it is a celebration. Yes, we understand the history of
matters
Christmas.
is that he was born.
Yeah, that he was born, and we're celebrating the fact that God came into reality to us.
More
our
importantly,
first
that he
gift of
died.
salvation.
Yes.
And so we celebrate the birth of Christ. Other people, it's for family, it's for celebrating blessings, it's for giving, and that's fine too. But no matter what, it's a tradition in this country. It's a beautiful tradition of giving. So if it's on your heart to give and to bless someone and families, especially these children, they don't know any better, they don't know how to reconcile that, then please consider to do that. So we wanted to at least come on for an hour and a half and stay with the show. I know a lot of people that listen to only radio didn't get a chance to do this. We should have probably mentioned it at the end of the show again last week. But thank you for joining in. Have a blessed weekend, and God willing, we'll see you next week.